Let's be real for a second. Most men have been sold a lie. We've been told that if we just say the right things, show up enough, buy enough gifts, and play the nice guy long enough, she magically fall for us. But deep down you already know that doesn't work, because the truth is, attraction isn't logical. It's emotional. It's not built on effort, gifts, or attention. It's built on how you make her feel when you walk into the room, or when you're no longer in it. And here's where most men go wrong. They chase. They overtext. They show up too often, too predictably. They pour their energy into being available, agreeable, and good enough. But instead of drawing her closer, they disappear into the background. Why? Because women, like all of us, are emotional creatures. They don't obsess over what's always in front of them. They obsess over what they feel, over the mystery, the spark, the tension, the things they can't quite explain. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. Women are not mysterious beings. They're not magical puzzles. They're human. They respond to emotional patterns the same way you and I do. And if you understand those patterns, if you learn how to engage her emotions, not manipulate, not pretend, but engage, she won't just like you. She won't just notice you. She'll start thinking about you when you're not even around. You'll take up space in her mind, rent-free. Now don't get this twisted. What I'm about to share with you is not a script to play games. It's not about tricking anyone. It's about becoming the kind of man who naturally draws people in, not by chasing them, but by understanding them. See, obsession doesn't happen because you followed all the rules. It doesn't happen because you made her laugh or look the part. It happens when you hit something deeper, something visceral. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful psychological triggers that will change the way you think about attraction forever. These aren't gimmicks. These aren't pickup lines. These are deep emotional insights, rooted in human behavior and Stoic philosophy, that will help you unlock a kind of presence most men never learn to carry. And here's the wild part. Once you start living with this level of emotional awareness, it's not just women who notice. It's the world. People listen when you speak. Rooms feel your energy when you walk in. You stop performing and start leading. So if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever wondered why your efforts didn't land, stick around. Because what comes next isn't just going to change how women respond to you. It's going to change how you see yourself. Let's dive in. Let me ask you something honest. Have you ever found yourself always being the first one to text? Always available, always saying yes, always waiting for her to reply. Like your day depends on it. Be real with yourself. Because if that's been your default, I get it. We were taught that being present, attentive, and ready at all times would show her how much we care. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Availability kills attraction. Scarcity, on the other hand, that creates desire. You see, we humans don't chase what we already have too much of. We chase what feels rare, what's just out of reach, what demands a little effort, a little wondering. And women? They're no exception. Now don't confuse this with playing games. Scarcity doesn't mean ghosting her or pretending you don't care. It means showing her, through your actions, that your life doesn't revolve around her. Because here's the paradox. When you stop trying so hard to be seen, you start being noticed. When you stop being everywhere, you become memorable. Picture this. Two men. One is always online, always texting, always ready to jump in his car and meet her the second she calls. The other? He's got a mission, a schedule, a life, he replies. When he can, not to ignore her, but because he's actually doing things that matter. Guess which one she thinks about more? That's the power of scarcity. It's not arrogance. It's not neglect. It's self-respect. It tells her, and more importantly, yourself, that your time is valuable, that you don't hand it out like candy, that you're a man with a sense of purpose, and she's welcome in your orbit. But it's not her playground. Let's break it down practically. Stop being the first to text every single time. Let conversations breathe. Let her miss you. Give her the space to feel your absence. That gap, that silence, that's where she starts thinking about you. That's where intrigue begins. The key is balance. You don't vanish. You're not cold. But you're not a golden retriever waiting by the door, either. Let's say she invites you out. You're genuinely busy. Say so. Not to make her chase, but to show her you've got priorities. You're not just orbiting her world. You have your own. And when you do show up, when you do give your presence, it means something. It becomes rare, and rare things, we protect them. We want them. We obsess over them. Think about exclusive events. VIP lounges. Limited edition anything. We crave it because it's not always available. Now imagine you becoming that energy. Not fake, not forced, just naturally selective. Here's the deeper Stoic angle. A man who is scarce isn't avoiding women. He's simply anchored in something bigger, in his purpose, his peace, his path. He knows that his worth doesn't come from being wanted. It comes from being centered. So the next time you feel the urge to overgive, over-message, or over-show up, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I choose to, or because I'm afraid she'll forget me if I don't? Because if it's fear, that's not attraction. That's insecurity wearing a mask. Be the man who knows his value. Be the one who lets silence speak. Let her feel the space, and in that space, she start to feel you. Remember, scarcity doesn't push her away. It pulls her in. And the less you chase, the more she start to wonder, and maybe, just maybe, she'll chase you. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood elements of attraction. Mystery. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't being open and honest the right thing to do? Sure, but too much too soon? That's not vulnerability. That's emotional dumping. And nothing kills attraction faster than laying everything on the table before she's even picked up the menu. You see, mystery isn't deception. It's not hiding who you are. It's the art of timing. It's about pacing what you reveal and allowing curiosity to breathe. Think about your favorite movie or book. The ones that gripped you, the ones you couldn't put down. They didn't tell you everything in the first chapter, did they? No, they revealed things slowly, piece by piece, moment by moment. And because of that, you stayed hooked. Attraction works the same way. The moment someone feels like they've got you completely figured out, the tension disappears. There's no spark left to chase. There's no what's next. Just familiarity. And here's the brutal truth. Familiarity is the enemy of desire. Comfort is good for commitment. But curiosity? That's the fuel for obsession. So what? Does staying mysterious actually look like in real life? It starts with your conversations. You don't need to spill your whole life story on the second date. You don't need to explain every detail of your weekend or overanalyze every emotion. Sometimes it's more powerful to say, "It was a good weekend. Got into some interesting stuff." And leave it at that. Let her lean in. Let her ask. Let her wonder. And don't confuse mystery with distance. You're not trying to come off cold or unavailable. You're simply leaving room for imagination. And imagination is powerful. A man who always has something more beneath the surface. Who doesn't rush to explain himself. Who carries himself with calm, centered energy. That man becomes unforgettable. Think about it. When was the last time someone made you curious just by how still they were, by how they didn't overreact, by how they spoke less but meant more? That's mystery. That's presence. That's power. It also means being a little unpredictable. Not chaotic, not inconsistent, but just unwritten, unscripted, unexpected. Maybe one day you suggest something totally different, a spontaneous plan she didn't see coming. Or instead of texting good night every night like a routine, One day you simply say, "Sleep well," and let it linger. That small shift? It changes everything. Because when she can't predict your every move, she starts to pay attention. And here's a little psychological nugget for you. The human brain is wired to seek patterns. When we can't find one, our focus intensifies. That's what mystery does. It hijacks attention. It makes you unforgettable, not for what you say, but for what you leave unsaid. There's a Stoic power in this too. The ancient Stoics didn't waste words. They didn't reveal more than necessary. They moved with purpose and let their presence do the talking. A Stoic man doesn't try to be interesting. He is interesting because he's anchored. Because he's not trying to be read like an open book. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't about withholding affection or ghosting. It's about restraint. It's about composure. It's about letting her discover you, not dumping everything on her doorstep like a moving truck of emotions. You are not a product. You are not a pitch. You are a story. And the best stories? They don't reveal their final page in chapter 1. So the next time you're talking to her, ask yourself, am I inviting curiosity or am I rushing to be understood? Because the man who moves with mystery, who doesn't over-explain, who knows there's strength in silence, he doesn't need to impress. He becomes unforgettable simply by being felt, not fully seen. Let her chase the next page. Let her want the sequel. Because that's where desire begins, in the space between the known and the unknown. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly remembered someone? Not for what they said, but for how they made you feel. You see, emotions are the fingerprints of memory. We forget faces, we forget words, but we remember how someone's presence hit us in the chest, how they made us feel alive, challenged, seen, or shaken. And here's the truth most men miss. Women don't obsess over logic. They obsess over emotion. You could say all the right things, have the perfect career, be polite, check every box. But if she doesn't feel anything in your presence, you vanish like background noise, because attraction isn't a checklist. It's an experience, a storm. And if you want to be unforgettable, you have to trigger emotions deliberately. Now let's be clear, this isn't about playing with someone's heart. This isn't manipulation. This is understanding how human beings connect, how we're wired to bond through emotional resonance. So how do you do it? Start by asking better questions. Don't skim the surface with, "So what do you do?" Go deeper. What's something you've always wanted to do but never gave yourself permission to? What's a moment in your life that changed everything? Those questions? They touch her story. They awaken memories. They invite her to feel something real. And in that moment, she connects those feelings to you. But emotion isn't just in conversation. It's in the experience you create. Take her somewhere unexpected. Break her routine. Do something spontaneous that shakes her out of autopilot. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a late-night walk under a full moon, a rooftop with city lights, a moment of silence in the middle of chaos. It's about making her feel not safe, not secure, but awake. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Not all emotions need to be positive. In fact, a little tension, a little confusion, a touch of frustration, used wisely, can burn deeper into her mind than any compliment. Because what lingers is not what's clear. It's what's unresolved. You say something that challenges her, that gently calls her out, that dares her to look at herself in a way she hasn't before. For example, she opens up about something she's struggling with. Most guys nod and sympathize. You look her in the eye and say, "I get why you think that way, but I don't fully buy it. I think you're stronger than you're letting on." Boom. That's emotional friction. That's what makes her lean in, not because she's offended, but because you saw something in her she's still discovering. That's rare. That's magnetic. And don't forget the power of humor. Laughter isn't just fun, it's glue. It breaks defenses. It softens the mind. If you can make her laugh and then make her think, you just created an emotional roller coaster. Because real connection isn't clean. It's messy. It's full of highs and lows and questions that don't have easy answers. Think about it this way. Most guys leave no emotional trace. They try to impress. But the man who makes her feel something, whether it's joy, tension, surprise, or reflection, that's the man she remembers. When the room is quiet and she's lying awake, that's the man who lives in her gut. Not just her inbox. The Stoics taught us that people are not driven by reason, but by impressions. By the feelings we leave behind in a single moment. So the next time you speak to her, don't aim to be impressive. Aim to be impressionable. Make her laugh. Challenge her thoughts. Interrupt her emotional pattern. Let her leave the conversation not just with a smile, but with questions. And if she walks away feeling stirred, confused, excited, or even slightly annoyed, congratulations. You've made her feel. And that's where obsession begins. Let me tell you something most men don't realize until it's too late. Routine is the silent killer of attraction. You could be charming, smart, even physically attractive. But if she can predict your every move, every word, every message, you become background noise. And let's face it, nobody obsesses over what feels predictable. See, our brains are wired for stimulation. We crave surprise. We lean into mystery. We stay hooked on what we can't fully figure out. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. The mind fixates on what's left unresolved. Ever wonder why you can't stop thinking about that unfinished text? That cliffhanger ending? That person who almost said something but didn't? It's because incompleteness lingers. It sticks. And in the world of attraction, that's a secret weapon. So here's the rule. If she always knows what's coming next, you're not exciting. You're a calendar notification. Now, I'm not saying you should play games or become erratic. That's not masculinity. That's insecurity wearing chaos. What I'm saying is, you need to become slightly unpredictable. Controlled chaos. The kind that keeps her alert, curious, on her toes. Let me paint a picture for you. Most guys text, "Good morning," every single day. They give the same compliments. The same safe conversation. The same dinner plans. One day, you send a voice note. The next, you disappear into your own world for a day. Then you show up with a spontaneous invite to a jazz bar she's never been to. Next time, you bring silence instead of small talk. It's not about being distant. It's about being unwritten. A man who walks his own rhythm, and sometimes shifts it, is unforgettable. Because she doesn't know what page you'll turn next. And that unpredictability, it creates emotional tension. And tension is the seed of desire. Think of attraction like a violin string. Too loose, no sound. Too tight, it snaps. But just the right tension, it sings. So how do you apply this in real life? Try this. Next time you're out with her, and the conversation's going well, lean in and say, "Have you ever wondered what it would be like to disappear for 48 hours? No phones, no trace, just freedom." She'll laugh. But trust me, she'll remember that line, because it breaks the pattern. It makes her wonder what you'd actually do. It hints at a life that isn't fully mapped, and that's exciting. Here's the Stoic angle. Unpredictability isn't for attention. It's a byproduct of inner freedom. You're not being unpredictable because you're trying to get her attention. You're being unpredictable because you don't need to perform. You're living by your own code. And she's welcome to join the ride, but the script is yours. Stoicism teaches self-mastery, and self-mastery means you don't owe anyone predictability. You speak when you choose. You act from intention, not approval. You show up on your terms, not to fit someone else's mold. And that kind of presence, it's electric. So here's the challenge. The next time you interact with a woman, don't try to impress her. Don't follow the same routine. Say something unexpected. Change the rhythm. Let silence linger. Let her walk away wondering, what was that? Because that question, that space, that unsolved moment, that's where you become unforgettable. There's a kind of man who walks into a room, and without saying a word, everyone turns to look. It's not because he's loud. It's not because he's flashy or putting on a show. It's because he carries something rare. A quiet, grounded confidence. You see, real confidence isn't what most people think it is. It's not about dominating the conversation. It's not about showing off or being the smartest guy in the room. And it sure as hell isn't about acting tough or trying to impress every woman within arm's reach. True confidence is calm, rooted, silent when it wants to be, firm when it needs to be. It's the energy of a man who knows who he is and doesn't need applause to feel it. Let me say that again. He knows who he is, and he's not waiting for anyone's permission to be that. Now, here's the part most men struggle with. They think they have to perform confidence, wear it like a costume, memorize the lines, copy someone else's swagger. But when you fake confidence, people feel it. Women feel it. That's why the man who owns his flaws, who's not afraid to say, I don't know, who shrugs off rejection without losing his center, that man, he doesn't just earn respect. He earns trust. Because confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being okay with not being perfect. Own the scar on your hand. Own the stutter in your voice. Own the silence when you don't feel like talking. You're not here to perform. You're here to be real. And when you show up real, people relax around you. Women feel safe with you. Not because you're nice, but because you're steady. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You're not waiting for someone else to decide your value. Here's a deeper angle most men overlook. Confidence isn't just mental, it's physical. It's in your posture, your tone, your stillness. Walk into a room and keep your head up. Let your shoulders drop, not in defeat, but in ease. Speak slower. Pause more. Look people in the eye when you talk, not to intimidate, but to connect. Silence, use it. Most people rush to fill silence because they're uncomfortable. A confident man lets silence breathe, because silence is power. And power doesn't always need to speak. Now, what happens when things go wrong? When she ghosts you? When your boss criticizes you? When your plans fall apart? That's when real confidence shows up. Not when things are easy, but when you're under pressure and still don't fold. You don't spiral. You don't beg. You don't collapse into over-explaining. You simply say, okay. You breathe. You keep walking. Because your self-worth, it was never on the table to begin with, and that is magnetic. Women are drawn to that kind of stillness, to that kind of presence, because it signals something deeper than charm. It signals self-possession. So let me ask you something right now. Are you performing? Or are you becoming? Are you chasing her approval? Or are you rooted in your values? Because the moment you stop chasing validation and start living from within, you become the man they remember, the one who didn't need to impress. Because he already knew who he was. That's confidence. And that's what changes everything. Here's something most men never figure out, and it costs them everything. Attraction isn't about saying the right thing. It's about feeling the right thing and reflecting it back to her. You don't win her heart by performing. You win it by attuning, by picking up on what she's feeling beneath the surface and mirroring it in a way that says, I see you. Let's be clear though, this isn't mimicry. You're not parroting her opinions. You're not pretending to like what she likes. That's shallow, that's strategy. This is something deeper. This is emotional resonance. Let me explain. Every person carries emotional signals in their words, in their tone, in their stories. But most people, especially most men, only hear the surface. They hear what she says, but they miss what she's revealing. Let's say she's telling you, about her last vacation. The average guy says, "That sounds cool. I've always wanted to go there." You slow down. You listen between the words. Maybe her voice lit up when she described getting lost in a new city. Maybe she laughed a little longer when she remembered dancing barefoot in the rain. What she's telling you isn't about geography, it's about freedom, about play, about feeling alive again. And you say, "Sounds like you were reconnecting with a part of yourself you hadn't touched in a while." Boom. That's not a line. That's not a trick. That's you tuning into what she's actually trying to feel. And holding up a mirror. In that moment, something shifts. Because for the first time in a long time, she feels seen. Not for her image, not for her charm, but for her inner world. And when a woman feels emotionally seen, that's when her walls drop. That's when she starts leaning in. Not out of interest, but out of connection. Let's take it one step further. When you mirror her emotional frequency, your body naturally starts to respond. You match her energy. Your voice mirrors her tone. Your rhythm aligns with hers. This isn't manipulation. This is biology. Your brain has something called mirror neurons, the same neurons that make you flinch when someone else gets hurt, or tear up during a movie, even though it's not your story. When you're emotionally attuned to someone, your mirror neurons fire. And hers do too. This is how subconscious bonding begins. And here's the part that flips everything. When you become a mirror to her desire, not her words, but the emotion underneath, you become the space where she meets her own hidden self. If she longs to feel safe, you become steady. If she craves wildness, you introduce unpredictability. If she's aching to be truly seen, you hold her gaze without blinking. That's what creates what psychologists call emotional attunement, where two people are in sync, not just in words, but in emotional frequency. And when she feels that with you, she won't be able to explain it. She just wants to be near you. Because your presence doesn't just reflect her, it amplifies who she's trying to become. But here's your warning, don't overdo it. If you try to match her every word, copy her every mood, or force the connection, you'll break the spell. This is subtle work. This is art, not tactic. Sometimes it means being quiet at the right time. Sometimes it means speaking a truth she didn't ask to hear, but needed. Sometimes it means just breathing beside her and letting her energy settle into yours. It's not about fixing her. It's about feeling with her, not leading, not chasing, meeting. The Stoics understood this too. They didn't control people, they observed. They studied. They acted with presence and intent. And when you live that way, you don't just attract women, you move them. So the next time you're with her, don't just ask, "What does she like?" Ask, "What is she trying to feel?" That no one else has given her permission to feel. And then, can you become the space where she feels it, safely and fully? If you can do that, you won't need to chase her. She'll return to your energy, because it feels like home. Let's flip the dynamic for a moment, because if you've ever found yourself chasing, waiting for a reply, bending your values, overgiving just to be noticed, you already know it doesn't feel good. And it definitely doesn't work. Here's the truth no one taught us growing up. You are the prize. But most men forget this the moment they feel something for a woman. They start giving too much, too fast. They seek validation. They confuse attention with affection. And somewhere along the way, they lose their edge and their power. Now let me be clear. Being the prize isn't about arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than her or playing hard to get. It's about having a level of inner certainty so solid that you don't need to chase anyone to prove your worth. Think of it like this. The prize doesn't run. The prize doesn't beg. The prize waits and only accepts those who meet its standard. So the question becomes, are you the man who leads with desperation or the one who moves with conviction? Because when you're the prize, your energy changes. You stop texting. just to get a response. You stop folding every time she pulls away. You stop handing out your time to anyone who simply asks for it. And this shift? It's subtle, but powerful. When a woman feels that you're not seeking approval, that you're not trying to earn her affection, but that you're simply living aligned with your own values, she leans in. She becomes curious. She adjusts. Because now you're no longer reacting to her world. She's stepping into yours. That's sexual polarity in motion. When you remain grounded in your masculine frame, calm, clear, steady, you create space for her feminine energy to move, to feel, to be drawn to the fire without knowing exactly why. But that only works if you don't collapse. If you don't fold the moment it gets uncomfortable. Because trust me, she will test you. Not out of cruelty, but instinct. She wants to know, can you hold your frame when the winds change? And if you can't, she'll feel it. She may not say it, but she start to pull back, not because you weren't enough, but because you stopped being centered. So here's what it really means to be the prize. You set boundaries, and you stick to them. You act with intention, not impulse. You value your time, your energy, your peace. You welcome connection, but you don't need it to feel whole. And when you embody that, you become rare. And in a world where most people are desperate to be liked, rarity becomes irresistible. Let me offer this reflection. When was the last time you walked into a room not to be noticed, but simply to own your presence? Not performing, not shrinking, just being unapologetically, because the man who knows he's the prize doesn't need to raise his voice. His silence speaks. His pace is intentional. His decisions aren't reactions, they're rooted in purpose. And women feel that. They respect it. They respond to it, not always consciously, but deeply. So the next time you catch yourself chasing, proving, reaching, pause. Ask yourself, what am I trying to earn that I haven't already claimed within myself? Then remind yourself of the truth. You are the prize. Act like it. Not by being distant, but by being centered, by being selective, by being a man who knows what he brings to the table and isn't afraid to eat alone until the right woman sits down beside him. Because when you embody that energy, she won't just be attracted to you. She pursue you. And not because you asked her to, but because your presence made her want to. Let's be real for a second. Desire doesn't grow when something's handed to you. It grows when something's just out of reach. Think about the last time you truly wanted something. Not something easy, not something predictable, but something that made your chest tighten. Something that made your mind race at night. It probably wasn't the thing you could have right away, because wanting is born in the gap, in the space between almost and not yet. And that's exactly where you need to live. If you want her to want you, really want you, you have to stop trying to convince her. Stop flooding her with effort, attention, approval. Because here's the paradox. The more she has to reach for it, the more it matters. This doesn't mean playing games. It means you don't put everything on the table in the first round. You let her feel the tension of not knowing. You let her lean forward. Because when you hold something back, not out of fear, but out of self-respect, you create a space where curiosity grows. And curiosity is the root of attraction. Now here's the subtle art. You build that desire not with noise, but with contrast. Be warm one moment. Then pull back and let silence speak. Be present. And then be absent. Just long enough for her to wonder. This push and pull? It's not manipulation. It's rhythm. It's tension. It's what creates emotional arousal, the kind that lingers long after the conversation ends. Because while logic seeks clarity, desire thrives in the unknown. Let me give you a simple example. You go on a date. Everything's flowing. Energy is high. Instead of texting her the moment she gets home, you wait. You leave the silence untouched, not to punish, but to let her fill it. To let her imagination stretch into the space you left behind. And that space? That's where the want begins. Because now she's wondering, is he thinking about me? Why hasn't he texted? What was that look he gave me before he left? When you leave room for her to interpret, she starts to invest. Emotionally. Mentally. Even physically. And this is where the Stoic truth kicks in. A man who detaches from the outcome is a man who becomes unshakable. He doesn't seek validation. He doesn't grasp. He doesn't chase. Because he already knows who he is. He lets his presence speak, and then he lets go. And that detachment, that lack of need, it creates a magnetic force. Not because he's distant, but because he's centered. Most men try to impress by showing more. But the Stoic man impresses by withholding just enough. By letting her want something she hasn't fully touched yet. It's like standing at the edge of a beautiful mystery. You can feel it, but you can't quite name it. And that's what makes it unforgettable. So let me ask you this. Are you constantly trying to prove your value, or are you letting her discover it? Because the moment you stop giving everything away, when you leave a little behind the curtain, you become a man worth chasing. You become a presence she can't stop thinking about. So next time, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't explain every thought. Don't answer every question. Let her feel the weight of your absence. Let her lean into the space. Let her want it, because when you do, you stop being the one who needs her attention and become the man whose attention she's working to earn. And that, my friend, is where the game changes. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever felt electricity in the air before anyone even laid a finger on you? That moment when the space between two people feels charged. The silence thick, the glances longer than they should be. And nothing physical has even happened yet. That's power. And here's the secret most men miss. Tension is more powerful than touch. See, most guys rush the moment. They get nervous when it gets quiet. They feel the pull. And then they break it with a joke, a move, a comment too. Ease the pressure. But the man who can sit in that heat, who can stretch the silence, hold the eye contact just a little longer than expected, he owns the room. He owns the moment. And without even trying, he owns her attention. Because true seduction isn't about taking. It's about letting her feel your restraint. Think about it. What's more intoxicating? The kiss that happens instantly, or the one that almost happens, but doesn't, when you lean in. Not enough to close the distance, but just enough for her to feel you there. To wonder, is he going to kiss me? That's the tease. That's the game beneath the game. And you don't need to touch her to make her body remember you. You just need to almost touch her, with your voice, your presence, your control. Let's break this down. It starts with your eyes. You don't dart around. You don't stare like a predator. You let your gaze land, hold, roam slowly. Let her catch you looking. And don't flinch when she does. Then your voice. Drop it lower, slower. Let your words feel like they wrap around her, not just bounce off the walls. You're not trying to impress her with what you say. You're letting her feel the weight of how you say it. And finally, your stillness is seductive. Stillness says, I'm not in a rush. I'm not nervous. I'm in control of myself, of this moment. You're not fidgeting. You're not over-smiling. You're not chasing the next line. You're rooted, grounded, stoic. That restraint, that's what makes her mind spin when she walks away, because she felt something build. And you didn't release it. You let it sit. You let her carry it with her. And now she's replaying it. That's the magic of teasing without touching. It's not about denial. It's about depth. It's about creating a moment so full of presence and tension that it becomes unforgettable. Now here's where Stoic philosophy enters the frame. The Stoic man doesn't react. He doesn't grab at pleasure. He masters impulse, not because he's cold, but because he understands that restraint is power. Anyone can chase. Anyone can move too fast. But the man who waits, who holds the silence, the stare, the energy, that's the man she remembers. So the next time you're across from her, at a bar, on a walk, in the car, don't rush to touch. Let the moment breathe. Lean in, then pause. Look at her, not to control, but to invite. Let her wonder. Let her want. And then, don't give her everything, because in that moment of almost, when she feels the tension but not the release, that's where you live in her mind, rent-free. So let me ask you, can you hold that power? Can you be the man who doesn't need to take the moment, because he is the moment? That's the tease, that's the game, and that's why. You don't have to touch her to make her feel everything. Let me give you one of the most overlooked, but most powerful moves in attraction. Walk away. While it's still good, not after the energy dies. Not after you've said everything there is to say. Not when you're both scrolling your phones in silence, but right at the peak. Right when the laughter is still echoing, right when she's leaning in, wanting more. That's when you end it. That's when you walk away, not because you don't care, but because you understand that unresolved moments create obsession. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological principle that tells us this. We remember what's unfinished, and when you master that in conversation, in texting, in presence, you don't just become memorable. You become magnetic, because you didn't give her the full ending. You didn't tie every ribbon. You left something behind. Let's say you're texting her late at night. The vibe is playful. There's flirtation, spark, even a little tension. Most guys keep going until it fizzles. You send, careful. You're getting addictive. Let's not ruin this. Talk later. And then, nothing, you disappear. Not to punish her, not to play games, but to let her sit in that feeling. To let her imagination finish the scene you started. Because in that pause, in that absence, you become more present. Let me say that again. Your absence becomes your presence. She replays your last line. She wonders what you almost said. She checks her phone, and in that space, you become unforgettable. The same applies in person. You're on a date. The chemistry is there. It's fun. She's laughing. There's warmth in the air. And instead of dragging it out, you say, "This was incredible. I'd rather leave it here than stretch it thin." And you walk. No lingering, no awkward over goodbye. You leave at the peak. And in doing so, you leave her wanting more. That's restraint. That's presence. That's emotional discipline. Now, a lot of men struggle with this because deep down, they're afraid. Afraid she forget them. Afraid if they don't say everything, they'll lose their shot. But here's the truth. The man who isn't afraid to walk away is the man who stays on her mind. Not because he begged to stay, but because he made his exit matter. And that's deeply Stoic. The ability to resist the need for reassurance. To walk away at your own rhythm, not someone else's. The Stoic doesn't chase validation. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't stay too long just to be liked. He speaks. And then lets silence do the rest. So here's the challenge for you. The next time a moment is going well, a date, a conversation, even a phone call, don't wait until it fades. End it while it's still alive. And let her feel the gap. Let her sit in the what just happened. Let her carry your presence into the night. Because women don't obsess over the man who stayed too long. They obsess over the one who almost did. The one who left something unsaid. The one who walked away while her heart was still listening. That's where longing begins. That's where stories are born. That's where you live, not in the room, but in her mind. So be the man who doesn't rush to finish the moment. Be the man who leaves it echoing. Because in that silence, you speak louder than words ever could. Let's bring it home. If you've made it this far, then you already know this was never about manipulation. It was never about games, gimmicks, or empty tactics. This is about truth. Human truth. Emotional truth. Every psychological principle. We've explored, from mystery and tension to presence and restraint, isn't some magic formula to get a woman. It's a mirror, showing you how attraction really works. And more importantly, how you work. Because here's the real secret: when you stop chasing attention, when you stop performing, when you stop needing anything outside of yourself to feel like a man, you become unforgettable. You stop being the noise in her background and start becoming the echo in her mind. Not because you tried to impress her, but because you carried something real, a presence, a stillness, a power that didn't need permission to exist. That's not a trick. That's mastery. And it's available to you right now, if you choose to stop acting and start embodying. That's what Stoicism teaches us, not to suppress emotion, not to numb ourselves, but to channel it, to move with intention, with clarity, with awareness. So as you go back into your world, into your relationships, your conversations, your choices, carry this one thought: you don't need to be louder to be heard. You don't need to be faster to be felt. You just need to be present and unapologetically you. That's what changes the game. That's what turns a moment into a memory. That's what makes a woman and the world lean in. So if this series stirred something in you, if you saw a reflection of the man you're becoming, or the man you've always been beneath the noise, then this is your moment to claim it. Drop it in the comments. Say it out loud. Let it land. I am the prize. I move with awareness. I control the moment. I don't chase, I attract. I don't impress, I embody. And if you're ready to take this deeper, to surround yourself with other men walking the same path, men who don't settle for surface level, men who sharpen each other, men who lead from within, then join the Stoic Heart Daily. Because you weren't made to play small. You weren't built to seek permission. You were designed to lead, quietly, boldly, intentionally. And this journey? It's only just beginning. Subscribe, reflect, keep walking. We'll be right here with you every step of the way.